Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for September the 29th. Today we are reading together from 2 Kings chapter 15, which has a lot of action going on. A number of new kings are going to show up in Israel, and we're going to have, let's see, one, two, three, four. I think four dynasty changes where somebody conspires against somebody else and kills them and ends up taking their place on the throne. So we'll read about all of that today. A lot to do with Israel, bookended on the front end and the back end by a couple of things going on in Judah. So let me get the text up on the screen for us. And we will read along together here in 2 Kings chapter 15. 2 Kings chapter 15, we're going to begin with Azariah, who is the son of Amaziah. We'll see his beginning here in, Azariah. Yeah, Azariah, the son of Amaziah, who is, let's see, Uzziah. Yeah, this is a bit confusing here about who actually is who, because we have a couple different names here for, let me see here, for Azariah. He's referred to by two different names within this chapter. So see if you can keep up with that. 2 Kings chapter 15 and verse number 1. In the 27th year of Israel's king Jeroboam, Azariah, son of Amaziah, became king of Judah. He was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jechaliah. She was from Jerusalem. Azariah did what was right in Yahweh's sight, just as his father Amaziah had done. Yet the high places were taken away. The people continued sacrificing and burning incense on the high places. Yahweh afflicted the king, and he had a serious skin disease until the day of his death. He lived in quarantine while Jotham, the king's son, was over the household governing the people of the land. The rest of the events of Azariah's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written in the historical record of Judah's kings. Azariah rested with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. His son Jotham became king in his place. Now we'll shift to Israel. In the 38th year of Judah's king Azariah, Zechariah, son of Jeroboam, reigned over Israel in Samaria for 6 months. He did what was evil in Yahweh's sight, as his predecessors had done. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had caused Israel to commit. Shallum, son of Jabesh, conspired against Zechariah. He struck him down publicly, killed him, and became king in his place. As for the rest of the events of Zechariah's reign, they are written in the historical record of Israel's king. The word of Yahweh that he spoke to Jehu was, 4 generations of your sons will sit on the throne of Israel, and it was so. In the 39th year of Judah's king Uzziah, Shallum, son of Jabesh, became king. He reigned in Samaria a full month. Let's see here, and I lost my place here. That's why I put my phone on do not disturb, so nothing distracts me. He reigned in Samaria a full month. Verse 14, then Menahem, son of Gadi, came up from Tirzah to Samaria and struck down Shallum, son of Jabesh there. He killed him and became king in his place. As for the rest of the events of Shallum's reign, along with the conspiracy that he formed, they are written in the historical record of Israel's kings. At that time, starting with Tirzah, Menahem attacked Tifsa, all who were in it, and its territory, because they wouldn't surrender. He ripped open all the pregnant women. In the 39th year of Judah's king Azariah, Menahem, son of Gadi, became king over Israel, and he reigned 10 years in Samaria. He did what was evil in Yahweh's sight. Throughout his reign, he did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam. He did not turn from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, that they had caused Israel to commit. King Pul, or the other name that we have is Tiglath-Pileser, or Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria, invaded the land. So Menahem gave Pul 75,000 pounds of silver so that Pul would support him to strengthen his grasp on the kingdom. Then Menahem exacted 20 ounces of silver from each of the prominent men of Israel to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria withdrew and did not stay there in the land. The rest of the events of Menahem's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written in the historical record of Israel's kings. Menahem rested with his ancestors, and his son Pekahiah became king in his place. In the 15th year of Judah's king Azariah, Pekahiah, son of Menahem, became king over Israel in Samaria. He reigned 2 years. He did what was evil in Yahweh's sight and did not turn away from the sins Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had caused Israel to commit. Then his officer Pekah, son of Remaliah, conspired against him and struck him down in Samaria at the citadel of the king's palace with Argob and Arieh. There were 50 Gileadite men with Pekah. He killed Pekahiah and became king in his place. As for the rest of the events of Pekahiah's reign, along with all his accomplishments, they are written in the historical record of Israel's kings. Let me get this shared again real fast. In the 52nd year of Judah's king Azariah, Pekah, son of Remaliah, became king over Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 20 years. He did what was evil in Yahweh's sight. He did not turn away from the sins Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had caused Israel to commit. In the days of King Pekah of Israel, here's the other name for Pool, Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria came and captured Ijon, Abel, Beth Maacah, Janoah, Kedesh, Hazor, Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and deported the people to Assyria. Then Hoshea, son of Elah, organized a conspiracy against Pekah, son of Remaliah. He attacked him, killed him, and became king in his place in the 20th year of Jotham, son of Uzziah. As for the rest of the events of Pekah's reign, along with all his accomplishments, they are written in the historical record of Israel's kings. Now we'll shift back to Judah. In the 2nd year of Israel's king Pekah, son of Remaliah, Jotham, son of Uzziah, became king in Judah. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, a daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in Yahweh's sight, just as his father Uzziah had done. Yet the high places were not taken away, and the people continued sacrificing and burning incense on the high places. Jotham built the upper gates of Yahweh's temple. The rest of the events of Jotham's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written in the historical record of Judah's kings. In those days, Yahweh began sending Aram's king Rezin and Pekah, son of Remaliah, against Judah. Jotham rested with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of his ancestor David. His son Ahaz became king in his place. That is 2 Kings chapter 15. 2 Kings chapter 15. Let's just do this kind of we'll break this up. We'll talk about Judah first, and we'll come back and look at Israel. The first new king that we have here is the young man. He's 16 years old whenever he takes the throne. His name is here, at least in verse number 1, is Azariah, but we're going to see later on that he is referred to as Uzziah in verse 13, and then he is referred to as the father of Jotham, Jotham, son of Uzziah, in verse 32, and then 2 Chronicles as well. He is referenced as Uzziah. He is again he is identified by both names within the text. Why they would have two names for him, I do not know. But let's just keep that in mind to keep this straight. Make sure whenever we talk about Azariah, we're talking about Uzziah. When we talk about Uzziah, we're talking about Azariah. Again, he was 16 years old whenever he became king, and he reigned for 52 years, which I believe is the longest time we had anyone reigning within Judah. It might even be the longest time we had anybody reigning anywhere within the land of Israel. He did what was right in Yahweh's sight, just as his father had done. We're going to see that as a pretty consistent pattern, that as the father was, so the son went. Now, there were various times whenever that changed, whenever you might have had a decent dad and a bad son, or a bad dad and a decent son, but for the most part, they would just follow in the steps of their fathers, and that's certainly what Azariah/Uzziah did concerning his father Amaziah. He did what was right, yet we have the continued bugaboo within Judah, and the fact that the high places were not taken down. and the people continue to offer their unauthorized worship there. Now we have what seems to be very randomly inserted here within the text, verse number 5, that Yahweh inflicted the king, or afflicted the king, and he was afflicted by a skin disease. I wonder why. It's kind of random that this would happen, considering the fact that he's described here in pretty positive terms. But that's again where we need Second Chronicles that details the reason why. I'm not going to get into too much of it, but he tried to overstep his bounds as king. Instead of just being content with being king, he also seems want to be a priest in some way. He wanted to be able to offer sacrifices and incense, and because of that, he ended up being struck with this affliction. Again, we'll see that more in Second Kings. But after or during the time that he was in quarantine as someone with a skin disease, his son Jotham is basically the one who is working as his stand-in. So it's very natural whenever Uzziah dies and Jotham steps into his place. Again, him stepping in is found in verses 32 and goes through the end of the chapter. Jotham is 25 years old when he becomes king, and he ends up reigning for 16 years. Again, he, like Uzziah / Azariah, did what was right in Yahweh's sight. But again, we have the high places being maintained. Another cool thing that he did is he built what is referred to in the CSB as the upper gate of Yahweh's temple. Many people believe that this was some sort of building link from the palace of the king to the temple. He wanted access to Yahweh's house. He does not take it as far as his dad did in wanting to overstep his bounds, but he wanted some physical connection there, and that seems to be what is being referenced here. Unfortunately, it is during his days, during the reign of Jotham, that Yahweh begins punishing. We'll call it punishing. It really is punishment. And I would say it would tie into the high places being present still. He begins to bring chastisement. Maybe that's a better way. Chastisement and discipline against Judah, in the fact that he allows Aram's king Rezin and then Pekah, the son of Remaliah, that they cause issues for Judah. This is whenever it begins, and it unfortunately is just going to continue on to gain more and more steam as the kings and the years pass by. So that's Judah from this chapter. What about Israel? Well, Israel, the first king we see is Zechariah, and we might remember that Zechariah was the son of Jeroboam. And he, like Jeroboam, was an evil man. He did what was evil in Yahweh's sight. He continued in the paganistic worship of Yahweh. Well, how does he move on from the scene? Well, he moves on from the scene through a conspiracy by Shallum. Shallum conspires against Zechariah. He ends up striking him down publicly. So he's not even scared of the public backlash from this. He's willing to kill the man publicly. He did that and took his place on the throne. Shallum, unsurprisingly, then is also killed by someone. So we have a dynasty change from Zechariah to Shallum. And then we have another dynasty change from Shallum to Menahem. Menahem is someone from the land of Tirzah. He comes to Samaria. He strikes down the king. He kills him. He becomes king in his place. And then Menahem sees what has happened with these last two kings. So it seems that he wants to show himself as being a really formidable foe. So don't come at me, or don't come with a bull, you're going to get the horns. So he has this territory of Tifsa that is not willing to just give in to his reign as king. So he goes in there and basically punishes them for their resistance, and is just very treacherous in it, ripping open all the pregnant women. Just a horrific behavior by this Menahem king. And again, for the text to tell us he did what was evil in Yahweh's sight. Well, duh. Yeah, we see that for sure, continuing as well in the paganistic worship. But it also shouldn't surprise us then that because of this great treachery that he committed, he ends up having a great deal of pressure exerted on him from outside forces. Now we have the introduction here of Assyria, of King Pul, or Tiglath-Pileser. He comes in and puts pressure on the land, invades the land, and Menahem feels like he's got to do something by this, so he offers tribute to the Assyrian king. He takes 75,000 pounds of silver, gives that to him, and then he's also hoping that Tiglath-Pileser will help him in his grasp on the kingdom, that he will strengthen him in his reign. And basically at this point, from this point forward, Israel is going to be going to be subjugated by someone for basically the rest of their existence, I believe, from this point on. It begins here with King Pul / King Tiglath-Pileser, and it just continues on from here. Again, this is the beginning point of that, as well as what we've seen at the end of the chapter with Judah. It just continues to build from here. And again, this is all a result of their wickedness, their unwillingness to be faithful to Yahweh alone. So after Menahem ends up leaving, here comes Pekahiah, who is actually his son. So we don't have a change of dynasty here. Pekahiah, unsurprisingly, did what was evil in Yahweh's sight. He continued in the paganistic worship of Yahweh, and he is conspired against by Pekah, son of Remaliah. He ends up killing Pekahiah and takes over the throne. So there's another dynasty change. And stop me if you've heard this before, but he did what was evil in Yahweh's sight. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, that he had caused Israel to commit. And here again, we have Tiglath-Pileser coming in and asserting pressure on Israel, so much so that they basically just take over the land of Naphtali, and they actually end up deporting some of the Israelites to Assyria. So we just see this pressure that's being exerted by outside forces just growing. It began with just some tribute here and there to various kings like Hazael. There was a tribute given to him, I believe. And I think the king just prior to him, there was some tribute given to. But now it's not just tribute. Now it's straight up captivity. And it's being invaded, and not just invaded, but overtaken various portions of the land of Israel. And why? Why is this the case? Well, it is because of sin. We read about the end of Pekah when there is another conspiracy. Again, stop me if you heard that before, where Hoshea, the son of Elah, ends up coming in and conspiring against Pekah and overtakes him as well. So within the span of, let's see here, beginning in verse 13, maybe prior to that in verse number 8, but there are 6 kings in 43 years of Israel's history. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6. So it's going back to verse number 8 then, I think. Verse number 8, there are 6 kings over the next 43 years in Israel's history. Why? And why did so many of these kings' reigns end in death through a conspiracy? Again, God's not with them. God's not going to bless them in their wickedness. And that's again, we think about why First Kings, why Second Kings, why First Chronicles, why Second Chronicles, why are all these texts written? Well, they are written to remind the people who are now in captivity. If we take this to be written in captivity, which I think there's strong evidence to suggest that, to let them know why they are in captivity, why they're not in the promised land, why they don't have God's blessings bountifully falling upon them. Is because of sin. We cannot expect God's grace and favor if we continue to rebel against him. That would be the mindset of the Jews at this time. That's why they had to call out to Yahweh and repent of what they had done and say that we don't want to be like our ancestors. And the same thing is true for us. We cannot expect to enjoy God's blessings if we're not going to be people who are faithful to him in every way. So let us submit to God. Let us show faithfulness to our King Jesus and show loyalty to him and him alone. No, that does not mean the life's going to be perfect, but it means that we can have peace knowing that we have a strong and active and thriving relationship with our God. If you have any questions about this text here in 2 Kings chapter 15, please feel free to leave that in the comments section below. I believe tomorrow we have a catch-up day. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that if you are a little bit behind. And also, since we won't be on tomorrow, happy early birthday to my sister Alex. It is her birthday tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you how old she is or how old Katie is turning next month, but it is, it's a substantial birthday. She may or may not be entering into a new decade, maybe having completed another decade in her life. But a very happy birthday to Alex. Tomorrow we'll be back at it again on Sunday as we read together from 2 Kings chapter 16, and I will also have our schedule to hand out on Sunday for those who like a hard copy schedule. I'll have that for you Sunday as well. Make sure you check the side table for that piece of paper. Again, thanks for tuning in today, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Take care and God bless.